Namaskara. Once again, I'm honored to do this interview with Sri S.L.Bhyrappa. It's a matter of great personal honor for me. Bhyrappa ji needs no introduction, definitely not in his Karma Bhumi of Mysore. He is one of the greatest novelists India has produced. His novels are unique in their subjects as well as their treatment. He has won many honors, countless to count for me. Saraswati Sanman, Padma Shri, Sahitya Academy Fellow. But more than that, he is the literary anchor that holds up the lives of hundreds of thousands of ordinary readers. And that, I think, is a great achievement. Whenever I speak to readers in Marathi, it's as Sir Gurudutt said, they say that he is ours. He is a Marathi writer who is also published in Kannada. He is that popular. And he is that popular in every language. And I have seen it when I asked for reader contributions to my thread. So, thank you very much for agreeing to talk with me. Your novels have dealt with contemporary issues like feminism, like caste undercurrents, like marital discord, as well as they have dealt with very serious philosophical constructs, as well as historical fiction. In fact, Dr. Supriya Sahasrabudhe had used a very apt Kannada word to describe your pratibha, Daitya Pratibhe. And I think I agree with her, because only with somebody with this kind of pratibha can come up with a literary showcase like this. Your novels cannot be slotted in any one category. Even the movements in Kannada that we have had so far, like Navodaya, Navya, Bandaya, Dalit, none of them can describe your novels. In fact, not a single word is enough. Not any ism is enough to describe your work. I would like to hear from you what is your impression of your own works? Do they follow any ism at all?
Yeah, do they?
Do they follow any vada, any ism at all?
See, I must tell you the background of my intellectual development. My basic study was philosophy.
Yes.
Now, philosophy made me understand the difference between real philosophical questions and non-philosophical questions. In our society, we have many questions like economic questions, sociological questions, caste problem, and so on and so forth. Now, originally philosophy included all other sciences. But as different sciences developed, they became independent. They just branched off. Now, if you take now development of psychology since, say, 150 years, it has made enormous progress. And science like psychiatry has developed, and it has influenced criminal law.
That's right.
And it has influenced our social morals also, economics. So, when we tackle a social problem, we must distinguish and say which problem is there, which category it belongs to. Is it an economic problem? People say there are, our people are dying out of hunger, and then farmers are committing suicide. It is an all India phenomena. What is the problem? People will say it is because of the Chaturvarnya system in which we inherited since 4,000 years or 5,000 years. Our farmers are backward. It is absolutely nonsense. We have, even during the British period, some modernization of agriculture, modernization of dams, etc. have come. And if our governments, since our independence, has solved this problem, has built more, dams, saved river waters, and then saved, agriculture without wasting water, and modernized our agriculture, there would not be any death of the farmers. What has our Chaturvarnya to do with this? So this way, my study of philosophy has helped me to categorize the problems, either social problem or individual problems. Therefore, there is no confusion in me. Whereas many people or sloganeerings have, for everything, they say, they only attack our, traditional, beliefs. People are dying out of, poverty, and these people are fighting for Ram Mandir in Ayodhya. What has this to do with that? So, my study has given me, I suppose, my studies, I have studied not only philosophy, I have studied some basics of economics, basics of advanced economics, studied the basis of law, I have studied the basics of jurisprudence. Studying jurisprudence is more important than studying the details of law. Details of law, our lawyers can have to remember, not we.
But the principles of
But the principle, the moral principle, the philosophical principles behind our laws, I have studied it. Psychology I have studied and I have also taught it. Psychiatry I know a little. So this way, I do not get confused about social issues or even moral issues. I think, now what happens was, when I started writing, there were movements like Navya movement and then the progressive movement, and later on the Bandaya, the protest movement, and the Dalit movement, and then movement based on each and every caste. So, I know, so when I create characters, the problem that strikes in my mind are eternal problems. Like, you take, man and woman relationship. I go to the basics of this problem. How this relationship is there in various other societies and how it was in various other societies, and what was our approach. I have read P.V. Kane's History of Dharma Shastra and some other books also. There is change, and at the same time there are some principles operating in our society from that period to this period. And if you read Ramayana and Mahabharata, you will know the basics of these problems. Therefore, the problem that I tackle are something which bothers human society, which had bothered human societies since millennia, and I hope that it will bother human society even after.
So the eternal truth, that
Yes,
is your
yes.
quest. Which brings me to your PhD thesis, which was about truth and beauty. So is truth always beautiful?
What?
Or is truth always beautiful? And if a writer has to choose between beauty and truth, what should he go for, truth or beauty?
You see, I have made this statement in my preface to the novel Avarana. If there is a clash between the demand of truth and the demand of beauty, that is demand of art, my preference is for truth. I am not prepared to sacrifice truth for the sake of beauty. See, you may write a drama depicting Tipu Sultan as a great patriot and then great tolerant person, etc. And if somebody, encounters him and asking what is your proof, and I have sufficient proof to counter your position, then he will say, I have written only a drama.
It's fiction.
I am not a historian. No, I don't allow it. I don't accept it, because when it comes to historical facts, you see, I have written historical, a novel like the one which you discussed, like Sartha, and also Avarana. The major characters are real characters. Aurangzeb, that I have described, is and Shivaji, which I have introduced in my novel, is real Shivaji. And I have not, repainted Shivaji. Even a line of my depiction of Shivaji is true to original Shivaji, and the same way true to original. But when I create other characters, those characters must fit in with the general atmosphere of that period, general political atmosphere, general economic atmosphere, general social atmosphere of that period. Then only it can be called historical novel. Not that in the name of history I can write anything.
True. So what you're saying is, when you're writing historical fiction, or any writer writing historical fiction, when it comes to historical people, you should stick to the truth. But your characters, the characters that you invent, as long as you are in the historical context, you are ready to, you can paint them the way you want to. You can create them the you want to.
Repeat the question.
If in historical fiction there are real people, like for example in Sartha, Shankaracharya and Mandan Mishra were real people.
Yes,
so you have to stick to the truth while talking about them. But when you're creating a character, a fictional character like a Nagabhatta or Chandrika, then you have the freedom to play around completely.
Yes, I have all freedom.
Okay.
I have all freedom. Even then, Nagabhatta and Chandrika and then Sthapati and some other characters, they make you feel that they are historically real characters.
Yes. The authenticity is always
authenticity.
maintained. Yeah. Which brings me to the next question. So what is the purpose of a novel? Is it always to teach people something, or is it a novel is an end in itself? If you're writing a novel, what are you looking at? Are you looking to change the society? Are you looking to get some behavior from your readers? Or you just want to bring your readers to a point and leave them to whatever conclusions they want to draw?
Whether it is historical novel or even contemporary novel, or even a Puranic novel. When I say Puranic novel, you have read the Parva, but you have not read Uttarakanda. Have you?
No, I have
No, because it is not yet published in Marathi, but it is with the publisher since more than 10 months.
Okay.
Now, in Uttarakanda, yes, I have changed the tone of the characters, like like Sita, and then I have introduced some more characters, etc. But the behavior of those characters or the inner tumult of those characters are true even today. And it was true under the circumstances in which Sita was put. I have not changed any outer details. Yes, she was a child found by Janaka in the what is called in the flow. Everything is according to Valmiki Ramayana structure only. But the inward, the nature of the person, gradually, what happens within her, Valmiki has not described it. Because one thing I believe that, after all, it was the first poem. Ramayana was the first poem, I say first epic poem. So Valmiki perhaps did not know all the techniques of writing novel or writing a story and all the details. For example, if you write a modern novel, in any modern novel, in any language, you introduce a small character and the reader will expect you what happened to that character somewhere in the middle or somewhere at the end, etc. You are responsible. Just introducing and then leaving it. During Valmiki's time, there were no readers and there were no critics, etc. Valmiki himself did not know these requirements, etc. And what about the inner the feelings and conflicts of characters? He has not gone into the details of, because for him Sita is the embodiment of Bhudevi, that is Lakshmi. So she has come here to fulfill a role, that is to show an ideal character to the whole world. Therefore, she will never protest anything. She will not think in the way in which my Sita thinks about it. So all these are my creations. Therefore, now according to me, my assumption is Sita of that age and Sita of which I have created. Sita which I have created is a 20th century, 21st century woman. At the same time, meek, loving and all that. But at the same time, so human nature is the same. This is my assumption. Whatever the society is or whatever the period is or whatever the economic conditions are, human nature is the same. And of course, economic situations change the behavior or it conditions the behavior. We have to take into consideration. And I have to explain that also for how the characters behave.
Talking about human emotions, Parva is a phenomenal, monumental work. It's a retelling of the Mahabharata. And they say that every emotion that exists in human mind is there in Vyasa's Mahabharata. There is nothing that is there in our minds that is not there in the Mahabharata. After reading Mahabharata, were you changed? I mean, you must have spent months researching for Parva. Did it change you as a person fundamentally? Are you a different person pre-Parva as a novelist, and are you a different novelist post-Parva?
Repeat the question.
Are you a different novelist? Did reading Vyasa's Mahabharata in great detail and writing Parva, did it change you as a novelist? Are your books more complex post-Parva than they were pre-Parva? Do you feel there are two phases?
I think Parva gave me a new life. And Parva made me think, Parva made me get into or having control over new techniques. You know, even before Parva, I had written a novel, what is it called? Anveshana. In Anveshana, I had developed a technique. And in Parva, I perfected that technique, and then I used it quite liberally. And later on, I did not, go to repeat the same technique. I don't like repetition. But here and there, the technique has its own influence. And Parva made me a new writer. Vamsharuksha made me a novelist. From Vamsharuksha to Parva is one period.
Yes.
And Parva made me a new writer.
Yes.
And then naturally, I suppose even Avarana made me a new writer in terms of technique.
Yes. Avarana has this novel within a novel technique,
yes.
and that really catches the attention of the reader, and you cannot forget. Like Lakshmi's dilemmas
Yes,
are
yes.
all contemporary dilemmas, but the narrative of the slave, it really sears you. It really sort of grips you as a reader. Which brings me to the question, the women in your novels are very strong, they're very resilient, they're very complex characters, and they live life on their own terms. You may not like them. Like, I don't like Amrita of Anchu personally. If I met her in person, I wouldn't like her, I wouldn't even talk to her. But Chandrika and Lakshmi are people I could be friends with. But they're all women who take their own decisions. They're all strong women. They're all very resilient women. Even after, and I don't think a male novelist has had such a command over the psyche of a woman to portray it with such sensitivity. But even then, why are your novels being called anti-women?
No. The thing is, there are various types of women, just as there are various types of men, just as there are various types of horses and various types of mares, various types of cows and various types of bulls. So, yes, I mean, she's an ill person.
Amrita.
She's an ill person. Now, what I have, tried to depict in that novel, Anchu, what is it called in...
Cart.
Huh?
Cart.
Yes. Now, she feels a sense of helplessness. That means she is cheated by her aunt.
Yes.
And she also feels she is cheated by her husband. And she cannot rebel openly. In that situation, because of suppression of her problem, she develops mental problem. I mean, one may call it depression or by any other name, etc. And one peculiar thing about such problems are, whoever comes closer to that person, whoever gives all support, whoever loves that person, all her anger is directed against that person because she cannot show her anger on others. It's a mechanism. So she goes on, torturing her own lover, etc. Now, ultimately what happens is, his lover helps her to go and set right the injustice or the cheating that her aunt has done. And after, getting that property to her hands, he also tells him, whatever the property that the aunt has done to her, has made to her sons, out of the money of Amrita, take it with you legally and then give it as a charity to them. Then she will be morally raised.
Yeah.
And then you get rid of that husband. And then children, whatever, her own sons.
Yes.
Legally speaking, Amrita is the inheritor. of the property. And then she has no right to squander that property. She has to pass it on to her sons. Now, you got it. Leave the entire property to her children, to your children, and then you earn for your life. That is, she also decides. She says, I will go to Bombay and then I will make a course in interior decoration, and for that purpose, now already she has some lakhs of rupees with her because of the court order. But she says, I don't want to touch that money. You give me, get some loan for me. I will go earn and I will come back and I will work in your office. I will contribute and I will not be a dependent on you. So it gives her liberation. There is the influence of teaching of Bhagavad Gita here.
So the dysfunctional element, once it's taken out of her life,
Yes,
then she can get on with her life, and
Yes.
that is the point that you leave the readers
yes,
with.
yes.
Which is usually, in every novel there is one positive point. There is one thing that makes the reader hopeful of what the next outcome is going to be. But in Tantu, I would have liked, as a reader, personally, Tantu ending where Mrs. Honatti's mother, says that I will go and I will cook something and I will feed those children. So at least they will have food. You might be still in jail, but nobody will keep me in jail. If at that point Tantu had ended, I would have liked it as a reader. But the last part where the Pujari, he dies because it is against his morals to eat food that is given by the government, I felt that was very depressing, and I felt very unhappy at the way Tantu ended. Is that because in those days, at the background of emergency, when you saw the erosion of human values, would that have affected in an end being like this?
You see one thing. It is the statue of Saraswati is stolen.
Yes.
Saraswati is the symbol of our learning, goddess of learning. And in the beginning, no one knows who stole it. And at the end, when they are in the jail, New York Times reports that it was the local MLA who did it, who helped to smuggle it out.
Yes.
So it comes to a conclusion and shows political corruption. And then this Pujari is a noble character.
Yes, he is.
Yes. Because when the Inamti is taken away from him, government takes away Inamti and it doesn't give
Anything back to him.
anything back to maintain, because government doesn't care what happens to the temple.
It's a logical end, but being the person I am, I would have liked it if it ended on a positive note. All novels in your, most of your novels and all novels in your later phase have a one-word title. It's just a single word title.
Pardon?
Single word. It's only one word that's the title. It is either Parva, Anveshana, whatever, but it's always one word. How difficult it is to choose that just one word that describes the entire theme of a big novel.
You see, one thing, one word is, it is a focus which can radiate meanings in different directions. One word has that strength. But if I make it a compound word, that adjective will confine the meaning of that word.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
And if you made it, if I make it a chota sentence, like in Kannada, for Goduli, Tabbaliyo neenade magane, that is the line from the poem. Son, you have become an orphan.
Yeah.
That means it is a full sentence. And in the full sentence, meaning is further confined. I wanted to avoid it.
Okay. So how do you choose that one word?
No, there are many words. One thing, when I complete the novel or when I read the manuscript once or twice, the word strikes in my mind. That's all.
Because now when I think of it, Avarana, I cannot imagine Avarana with any other name. Because after reading the book, the Avarana of illusion, of all the education that you have been getting, it's forever torn from your eyes and you will never get it back. It's just what happens to Lakshmi. Avarana on her eyes gets torn. So does the Avarana on the writer's eyes gets torn. And it's a perfect word. So I was curious to know that how you come with this word. How do you decide upon the end? Does the end decide itself, or as you start writing you come to a logical conclusion what happens in the end of the novel?
No, I cannot imagine the end in the beginning. Till I come to the end, I cannot imagine it. One thing is, just as in Hindustani music, how does the musician decide at closing the raga? When he develops the raga and then when he takes the cheese and etc., where should he stop it? Or where should he give the muktaya? Muktaya is the word that we say in Kannada. Where does he do it? Yes, he sings, and at some point he says, yes, I have expressed everything I have to express in this raga, and therefore, yes, I have to
End it here.
end it. And tihai, he gives tihai and ends it. That's,
Okay, so just like that.
yes. But one thing is, the end should always include all the threads, loose threads and main threads, and bring them into one single focus. That I get it in my mind intuitively.
What is more important, sanskara of a person that a person gets, the environment, or the heredity with what you're born with? I'm asking this specifically because in the end of Sartha, the Guru tells Nagabhatta and Chandrika that adopt this child, raise him with your sanskaras, and he will be a good person, he will be a good adult. But in Tantu, Anup, who has spent years in Annaiya's school and who has got good sanskaras, his father is also a good principled person. So obviously he has tried to give him good samskaras. But when Anup grows up, there is no remembrance, there is no conscience, there is nothing that holds him back to those sanskaras. So what is important, sanskar or what you're born with, your nature?
No, the influence of her mother, influence of money. You see, before he came to the school of Annaiya, he was stealing from the school laboratory and stealing from home. Our mother was, giving him plenty of money, etc., and no control, etc. And when he leaves that Annaiya school, when he comes to engineering college, he becomes, like any other engineering student with plenty of money. And her mother, even when she comes to know his sexual episodes, she doesn't, admonish him.
Yeah.
She gives money and then, he solves the problem. That means the mother encourages, and then lot of money. Yes, that's all. Okay. Therefore, here is a question of heredity or environment doesn't matter. It is environment only.
Okay. This is a question that I am very keen on getting an answer. You have traveled all over the world. You have such a training in philosophy, in psychology. Why have you not written a travel book ever? I mean, travel comes, the places come in your book as a background. Like, for example, if you read Sartha, you get a pretty good view of how 8th century India might have been. If you read Parva in the Kinnaur episode where they go to the Himalayas, you get a beautiful description of the Himalayas and the background. But why have you not written a book about your travels, say your musings to Himalayas? I would have loved to read that with your philosophical background, with your, your inward journey when you go to Himalayas. The external journey as well as your inward journey. Why have you never considered doing it?
No, it is not merely my travel within India. My travel within India made me understand one thing, that India is one. Culturally, India is one. There may be some regional variations, what we call regional variations only. Otherwise, culturally, we follow the same Dharma Shastra, and we say that most of our Dharma Shastra have come from Ramayana and then Mahabharata. That I have accepted. Himalayas, if you don't experience Himalayas, you cannot understand our culture. You cannot understand Ramayana Mahabharata. You cannot understand Kalidasa and so on, our literature. So Himalaya is very dear to me. And I have also traveled in various other countries also, which have really educated me. For example, when I went to Turkey, I traveled in Turkey for 10 days, in quite in detail. And when I went, I have seen the whole of, Turkey is not a very big country, whole of Turkey, and the guide had explained to all of us where the war took place, where the battle took place between Kemal Pasha and then the various other forces. There were 6 forces, which were fighting against Kemal Pasha. British, French, German, Russian and Greek and one other country. Now, this man with great determination, he won and drove them, all of them. Till that time, there was an old king in, what was the capital of Turkey those days? Constantinople. Constantinople. It is called by some other name. Istanbul. Now, there was the king. And he was also, what is it called, the head of all the Muslim countries.
Yeah, Khalifa.
He was the Khalifa. He was 75-year-old. But the name Khalifa was attached to him. And all Muslim countries have to send some symbolic tribute to him. That was the system. And he did not have any power in his hands. All other 6 countries had occupied different places of Turkey, and they would say, wherever we have established our rule, our countries, for example, for British, he says British legal rule applies here. German would say German rule would apply here. And one incident is that king, 75-year-old king, was feeling bored because he had nothing, no work, etc. And one day he was sitting, at the forefront of his palace, and there was a Mali doing agriculture. Doing hard park. And but Mali's daughter was there, 14-year-old girl. And he saw her and he thought, this girl is sufficient for me to overcome boredom. And he called that gardener and then said, give her to me in marriage. And he said, take her. He married her. Okay. That was the position. When Kemal Pasha won all, he dismissed that, what is it, the Caliphate, he dismissed it. All Muslim countries, rebelled against it. Indian Muslims also rebelled against it. And Gandhi
Actually
took
started,
the side of the Muslims.
Yeah.
Now, I have read thoroughly Kemal Pasha's life, the very beautiful biography of Kemal Pasha, written by Argentinian diplomat who worked there in Turkey for 7 years with great research, etc. He has written it. He introduced democracy there, and also he dismissed, he removed that Arabic writing, introduced Roman. If you go to Turkey, you feel you are in England. And modernized the whole thing. The position of women in Islam. Kemal Pasha adopted 7 girls. In Islam, there is no adoption. That you know.
Yes.
No adoption.
Yeah.
And how can, even if someone adopts, how can we adopt a girl? After all, women, has only 1/4 of the value of man, etc. Adopted 7 girls and then gave them modern education and made 2 of them fighter pilots.
Wow.
During that period, etc. Such a revolutionary person he was. Now, if I compare, what Kemal Pasha did was, the way in which Gandhi opposed Kemal Pasha, do you call it wise?
No,
do you call
Not
it
at
moral?
all. Not at all. The Khilafat movement, I think, was completely immoral.
And we say that Gandhi is a Mahatma and everything that he does, whatever Mahatma does is Mahatma. It is Mahat. But because I visited Turkey and I heard about the details from the guide, and then I asked the guide for a good book, and then she recommended it, and I bought it, and I came back and then read it. Then I understood the whole history of Turkey, and then I could compare our Indian leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru or Gandhi, etc., etc. These people are, they can't be favorably compared with Kemal Pasha. For me, Kemal Pasha is a greater man. Now, traveling in different countries give me an insight, and when I travel in any country, I will buy 1 or 2 books, authoritative academic books about that country, come back and then I read. And when I read, I can understand it better because I have already seen the geography. It is a form of education. It has helped me to write a novel, to grow as a novelist.
But why not write a travel book, sir? Why not write about the places that you have traveled to with your musings and your thoughts on it?
No. In travel book, there is no scope for imagination. Basically, I am an imaginative person because I create out of my imagination. And any good journalist can write a travel book.
Yeah, but you're right. It takes S.L.Bhyrappa to write a good novel. Not everybody can do that. Which brings me to the question that your contemporary writers in Kannada have not been kind to you. They have criticized your work without probably even understanding it. But you have always maintained your dignity. I have not seen you bowing down to their level and criticizing it. Even the characters that you have created in Avarana, Shastri, some say that it's been modeled on a particular Kannada writer, but I see people like that around me all the time. People who are always confused between their identity as Indians and their Western education, and they don't know which way to go. So how do you suggest we tackle such people? How to change these people?
See, I have ignored them. You see, one thing is, whatever, leftist movement there in this country, I have not only studied how leftism developed in India, but what is the origin and how is leftism in other countries also. Even there are leftists in America.
Yeah.
Now,
Very powerful ones.
whatever they do, our people copy from them. So, I know what is their origin, etc. And whatever I have read, say, Ambedkar, and also, I have read feminism. In fact, I had read, feminism right from that Sartre's friend, what is her name?
I forget. Simone de Beauvoir.
Boa. I have read her book thoroughly, and also the development of feminism from one decade to another decade, etc. I had read up to 1970, and later on I thought I should not waste my time in reading those books, etc. So I know, I have studied all those things. I know, I have studied its origin. Now, if I want, I could retort to them, I could, rebut them. But what happens to me? I mean, my creativity, and it distracts my creativity, and I would become another, fighter with them.
True.
It's waste.
True. It's better to create than criticize, always. Which brings me to the last two questions. You have said...
One thing I am telling from my experience, if any creative writer enters into disputes, his creativity would be lost. He should know what is happening, but be indifferent.
That, I think, is a piece of advice that will help every young creator, be it an artist, writer, or whatever. I come to education now. You have said that the purpose of education is to give emotional maturity to a person to face the problems in their life. If education doesn't do that, then it is not good education. And therefore, education that is based on lies, education that distorts historical facts, education that feeds us false narratives is not true education at all. I would like your thoughts on this.
You see, our educational system is still what Macaulay did. You take our graduate students, they come to Mysore and then they study up to BSc or MSc, etc. Vacation comes, they take a fairly big suitcase, go to railway station, and they ask somebody there, to which platform the train comes. He says, platform number 1. He will be waiting. And then suddenly, all of a sudden, a train comes in the 5th platform, and somebody says, that is your train. He has to go. But this youth, both boys and girls, this youth cannot carry this suitcase, climbing up the ladder and walking the other side and then climbing down, can't do it. He will call it a coolie, and then take it. Coolie said, how much money? And he said, how much you charge? He said, 200 rupees. And then he will say, Arey bhaiya, my railway ticket itself is 40 rupees and you are demanding. And he will say, no, 200 means 200. And haggling, he will say, all right, give me 175. I will not come down 175, etc. He will call another fellow, and that another fellow will say, give me 250. And this fellow is so helpless before a coolie. He is a youth, and that coolie is 50-year-old. What kind of education are we having, etc.?
That is a wonderful metaphor, actually.
No, that is why in our education, I have seen a school which I consider it as a model. That school is called Gurukula Prabodhini. It is in Chikmagalur district, Koppa Taluk. I was in that, stayed in that school for some 5 days. The teachers live there, and teachers, couples, they stay there, and they eat with the students, and the students get up at 5 o'clock, and then they do prayer. High school students speak in Sanskrit. Just as if you live in Karnataka, just as you automatically learn Kannada. In this way, they are encouraged to speak in Sanskrit without botheration of grammar. They speak in Sanskrit, they can read Sanskrit, and they can read difficult Kannada poems. And they write on the blackboard each day Subhashitas. And then the school has its own, cows, and turn by turn, the students are made to look after the cows and then clear the dungs and then draw the milk, etc. They do it, for 15 days. Another 15 days, growing agriculture, and so on and so forth. At night, the students are taken and then they are shown the sky and then the skull, etc., etc. Their general knowledge is so high. High school students, they knew my name, and then they asked me the question. You see, in Kannada, in the 14th century, there was a Kannada poet called Kumaravyasa. Kumaravyasa, he has written, Mahabharata. And they have read Kumaravyasa Bharata, 14th century. They have read it. And then they asked me, while Kumaravyasa has written like this, why have you written your Parva like this? Wow. They asked me about the, the characterization and the events, incidents taking place, etc., etc. They asked me repeatedly, showing the differences, etc. High school boys, which our Kannada MA boys cannot, because they have read neither that nor this.
True.
Therefore, our educational standard is below because the government doesn't want, good standard for our education. They have brought down the standard of the students, says this is too high, therefore dilute the syllabus. That is the attitude of the government. And then you put really educated people, if the students of that school, Gurukula Prabodhini, are like that, you can imagine the standard of the teachers. And that school does not take any grant from the government. The farmers give, grain, like, sugar, like rice and then ragi, etc., etc. And some people contribute money also. And what the parents want is, we don't want to send our boys to the government schools, because if they study there, they will not come back to look after our lands. True. Therefore, prepare them to become good farmers and then give them good education. And at the same time, if some boys have the capacity to study at a higher school, they want to become scientists, etc., after high school here, they can also go to PUC and then they can also go to degree classes, etc. Why don't they conduct the school like this? Because it requires, enormous effort, and it requires that the teacher should be competent. Are our governments prepared to appoint competent teachers? No, they go by various other considerations. Their qualification for teachers are completely different.
Thank you so much, sir. This school sounds a lot like Annaiya's school in Tantu, actually. There are many questions, but unfortunately I have to wind up because there are programs to be following.
Yes.
I really appreciate, sir, having given this time and patiently answering my questions. It's a great honor. Thank you very much. Dhanyavada. Dhanyavada. Namaskar.